For the first time in American history, a former U.S. president has been convicted of a crime.
Donald Trump is found guilty on all 34 criminal charges against him by a New York jury, officially making him a felon. The jury deliberated for more than 9 hours before finding the former president guilty.
President Donald Trump, as you know, made history this week, probably not in the way he wanted to, though. The former president convicted of felony crimes in a New York courtroom. A jury finding him guilty of 34 felony charges of falsifying business records to hide a $130,000 payment of hush money to adult film star Stormy Daniels. Those charges are Class E felonies, the lowest tier in New York State. Mr. Trump denounced the conviction while President Trump praised the rule of law, saying that no one is above the law.
It is possible that Donald Trump will be the first president to be elected with a felony. Let's talk about felonies. Let's talk about felons in America. Many felons in America can't even vote. Should Trump even be allowed to be a president with a conviction? Better yet, should felons be allowed to vote at all? I'm going to talk about that because in some states, felons can vote even after releasing parole. Former President Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felony counts related to falsifying business records to cover up hush money payments during the 2016 presidential campaign. The payments were intended to suppress negative stories that could damage his election prospects. This marks the first time that a former U.S. president has been convicted of a felony. But as you guys may already know, there isn't any kind of restrictions for a felon to run for president. And after his felony conviction, former President Donald Trump saw a significant boost in donations. Within minutes of his verdict, his campaign launched a focused fundraising drive portraying him as a political prisoner and urging supporters to contribute. This strategy proved effective as his primary donation platform briefly crashed due to the surge in donations. So it looks like it's possible this situation may have backfired on people that thought this was going to work and make him look bad. This is politics right now, but I want to dive deeper into felonies. I want to talk more about felons, their rights, their prospects, what they're able to do in this country, because I find that to be extremely interesting. And you can put in the comments below, do you think President Trump should be allowed to run for president with a felony conviction? Before we talk about states that have extreme restrictions on felons to vote, I want to talk about this TikTok that I saw. A friend of mine showed it to me, and I thought it was really interesting. I want you guys to check this out and let me know if you agree what he has to say about felons and I guess Trump.
If Donald Trump can be a felon and be president, then we absolutely, without a doubt, in this country need to make sure felon is removed off of all job applications. Felon is removed off of rental applications. Felon is removed off of professional certifications, things like dentists, massage therapists, realtors, mortgage loan officers. Those are professional certifications. Anything like that, felon needs to be removed off of it because the highest position in the land should be the most sacred and should be the example for everybody in this country. And if this is not a political post, this is an equal opportunity post, and this is a post that is about not holding down the everyday average American citizen.
So let's break down this argument. We talk about, in terms of the premise and the logical conclusion of it. If Donald Trump can be a felon and be president, then we absolutely, without a doubt, in this country need to make sure that a felon is removed on all job applications. That's what he's talking about. Felon needs to be removed off of rental applications. Felons should be removed on any professional certifications. And he says because the highest position of the land is the president, should be the most sacred, and should be an example for everybody in this country. Talking about not holding down the everyday average American citizen. So logically, I think it's a sound argument. Of course it makes sense. I think the president should have a clean record, but that's not how it works. You can look at the people that are in Congress. Many of them have criminal records. But let's break down one of the points that he said about removing felon off of job applications. So the example is, suppose that there's a person that committed a non-violent felony 20 years ago, has served their sentence, and has been a law-abiding citizen. Should their past felony disqualify them for employment indefinitely? Many people argue that they deserve a second chance. So you could say removing a felon label of a job applications might increase employment opportunities for people who have moved on and actually are doing the right thing. But if you are an employer, if you're about to hire someone, do you want to know that information? If you're trying to apply to work at a bank, and your last felony conviction was bank robbery, should that person work in the bank? Felon to be removed off of rental applications. A landlord may have some concerns about renting someone with a history of violent crime due to the potential safety risk to the other tenants. A person was convicted of domestic violence. The word is domestic in there. Should a landlord not be able to know about that? Should they ask about that history? Balancing the need for fair housing opportunities with public safety is a complex situation. Again, it's not black and white. I think the right for a landlord to dive a little bit into criminal history, because this person is going to be living around them, or at least around their property. So to say to take that off of a rental application, or not to even look into the past of a person that you're going to have in your property, I don't agree with that at all. Felons should be removed from professional certifications, things like dentists and realtors, or let's say mortgage loan officers. A person with a felony conviction for embezzlement may be considered high risk for positions involving financial transactions. Like I talked about the bank thing. So if you are a mortgage loan officer and you've been convicted of embezzlement, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think professional boards, professional jobs often consider the nature of the crime, the time elapsed since conviction, and the evidence of you not doing it anymore. Completely removing the felon label can lead to public safety concerns in professions requiring high ethical standards. But that goes back to being a president, right? Higher ethical standards. The highest position in the land should be the most sacred and should be an example for everybody in this country, which I do agree with, right? But unfortunately, the presidency is not without exception in controversies. And this could be something to be considered. I don't know if it's going to be necessarily considered for Trump, obviously, but can someone commit a felony, truly feel sorry for it, and America allowing a felon to serve as a president can be a sign of redemption? But at the same time, it does allow some questions about the standards for public office. But again, if you already know about politics and you already know what's going on in the Congress, there's a lot of corruption. So are we going to pretend that the president is some kind of saint? Regardless if you're talking about Trump or Barack Obama or Bill Clinton or George Bush, are we going to pretend that these people are the highest of moral standards when we already know politics is very, very dirty and nasty and unethical? The idea of his arguments are very idealistic. We don't live in an idealistic world. Unfortunately, everyday citizens with felony convictions face barriers to reintegrate, including employment, housing, and professional opportunities. The problem is when you make these kind of mistakes, you have consequences and you have to spend a lot of time to rebuild. And there's mistakes that some people can never forgive. But let's talk about something very simple, the most basic thing, voting. In the United States, as of 2020, there are about 19 million people in the US with felony convictions. The impact of these convictions extend beyond the individuals to their families and the communities, influencing various aspects of life, right? Like we talked about before. And voting rights for felons vary by state. Some states restore voting rights upon release of prison, while others require completion of parole or probation. And some impose additional waiting periods or require individual petitions for restoration. Currently, 5.2 million Americans are disenfranchised due to felony convictions. If you complete your prison sentence and parole or probation, you can vote. There are some restrictions based on what crime you have done. I think that's in Florida. If you did something with sexual assault or murder, you may have to actually have a little bit more of a process to get back your rights to vote. There are states like Maine and Vermont. These states are unique that they allow felons to vote even while incarcerated. Iowa had one of the most strictest laws permanently disenfranchising felons until they appealed to the governor to restore their rights to vote. But recent changes in 2020, an executive order by the governor restored voting rights for felons upon completion of their sentence, including parole and probation. Kentucky has another really strict voting rights. They permanently disenfranchise felons unless they receive a pardon for restoration of rights from the governor, even though in 2019, the governor signed an executive order restoring voting rights to over 140,000 non-violent felons who completed their sentences. In Alabama, if you are a felon, you lose your right to vote if convicted of crimes that include quote-unquote moral turpitude, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, a term that has been historically been very vague. In Mississippi, Mississippi's constitution lists crimes that results in permanent loss of your voting rights, including bribery, theft, arson, perjury, and others. If you want to get your rights back, you must apply to the state, or seek a pardon from the governor to have your voting rights restored. I think nationwide, after you finish your sentence, you should have the rights to vote again. I think it's extremely important that everyone gets involved in the process to vote, or at least have the ability to vote. Trying to get people back in society, you give them their chance to say something, to speak, to vote. If they finish their time, and we believe in second chances, if we do, then the ability to vote is extremely important tool to have. Now, talking about restrictions of becoming a president, well, good thing that we're electing a president. So if you feel like this is something that you do not agree with, go vote. If you don't care, vote anyway. Vote for the guy you want. Put your thoughts in the comments below. I know the comments are going to be a crazy situation. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of back and forth, but try to keep it respectful. What is your opinion on the situation? Do you think that a president should ever be even allowed to run with a felony conviction? And what do you think about felons? Do you think nationwide should every felon be allowed to vote after they finish their sentence? Let me know. Put in the comments below. Thank you for taking time to watch this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.